Well, hello there. I'm Handfull, and I'm the new Director of Programming at BurlyCon. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about class proposals for 2019. If you find yourself knowledgeable about things that other performers would like to learn about, then BurlyCon would love to hear the things you'd enjoy teaching this year. Class proposals, also known as presenter applications, close on March 31st, 2019 at 5 p.m. PST, so that's Pacific Standard Time. Here's a little tip. I say that you act like the class proposals end or close on March 30th. That way it gives you an entire day so that if you realize you didn't receive that email that says that you submitted an application, or that maybe you do want to submit that last class, that other thing that all your friends tell you you're great at, then you have a whole other day to get that class submission in. If you open up the application, either from the link on our social media or if you go to burlycon.com/programming, you'll see inside the application, all the way on the bottom right, there are 2 documents to help you through the application. Sure, you can just scroll through and answer the questions, but it's a lot easier if you open up a Word document of your choice and enter in all your information there, then copy and paste it into the application. That way, if something goes awry, you have the information on another document for you to simply copy and paste again. So now, back to those 2 documents I was talking about on the application. So go all the way down to the bottom right. There are 2 documents. There's a checklist. For those of you who are old school and you've submitted applications before to BurlyCon, this checklist just tells you everything you need quickly. Boom, boom, boom. These are the things you need in order to be ready to submit your application. The step-by-step guide is 12 pages long, and it goes through the descriptions of everything on the application so that we could keep the application fairly clean and easy for you to hurry up and enter your information into without having to read a lot of text. So the guide is for those who have maybe never submitted to BurlyCon before, or maybe don't understand all the definitions and words and terms that we use in the application. That's where the guide comes in handy. Now, here's the big question. What should you teach? Well, what do your friends and colleagues say that you're good at? Now, sometimes your friends will say like, oh, it's this thing on stage that you do, which is what my friends did. It's hard to describe some things that we do that are really killer on stage. After my friends asked me a few things, like questions about how I create an act, where do I get the inspirations for my acts, that kind of thing, we came up with the idea of this class goes to 11. And what that means is that you learn how to be, hopefully learn how to be a rock star on stage, or have some elements to being a rock star on stage. Another way you can find other class ideas is to go to BurlyCon's social media pages, Instagram, Facebook, that kind of thing, and a lot of people post about the classes they'd like to see at BurlyCon. In fact, this year, our social media team asked that very question. So scroll through those social media posts and see if there's something that catches your eye. You're like, you know what, I'm good at that. Or, wow, I didn't know people don't know how to do that. I am really great at that one thing. I was talking about my This Class Goes to 11, where you learn how to be a rock star in class. You can either be more specific than that, because that's sort of broad, or you can be even broader than that, or a little more woo than that, or a little more community than that. Think of if you want to go more specific, because it is okay to be very specific in the classes that you teach. For instance, an idea came up in my head recently of a class that would be great to teach pretty much anyone, and that's how to take a corset off on stage. It's literally that, just how to take a corset off on stage. And so what you could do as the teacher or the instructor is have everyone wear a corset. And it's one of those that you have to pull the strings in the back to loosen it up so that you can loosen the front up, or you're loose enough in the front to take it off. So do drills in those. You put it on, you tighten it to a certain extent, don't take too much time to tighten, because I'm sure that could be most of the class itself. And then you sit there pulling the strings, and you give them time frames. Do you have 10 seconds? Do you have 15 seconds? 30 seconds? And how do you get that corset off strategically and in an entertaining manner? It's so important that everybody does that on stage, so that the audience goes, holy shit, I never knew that someone could take off a corset that crisp and that clean all the time, no matter what. Now, we talked about something very specific, a class that's specific, like how to take off a corset. But what if you want to go a little deeper? What if you want to work in some woo? As many of you may or may not know, I am not a woo person. I don't feed off of that. But there are so many people that do, and it's so important to them that they feel and need and feel. So make sure that if you are great at one of those types of classes, that you submit one of those, because there's always a need for them, and they're fun to take. We recommend that you submit more than one class if you have the content to give. The reason is that just submitting one class, it could be a class that one of our invited presenters or guests of honors are teaching, so something similar. But if you submit two very different classes, or maybe like one on costuming and one on exercise, then there's a better chance that we may not receive as many applications for one of those types of classes versus the other. And that gives you a better chance of being able to teach this year. Thinking more about classes, did you hear that our theme this year is circus? Well, if you are great at teaching circus arts, preferably ones BurlyCon can allow within the limits of student safety, our insurance policy, and the cat that's on the table. Did you hear that our theme this year is circus? Are you great at teaching circus arts, preferably ones that BurlyCon can allow within the limits of our student safety, our insurance policy, and the hotel rules? We'd love to see those submissions. And you know what? We don't need to just see them this year. We'd like to see them every year that you want to submit a class for. So send us circus arts all the time. The other class type that we just introduced this year are Burley Labs. Burley Labs are shop-style classes where the students build or make something in class and walk out with a physical item in their hands that they created during that class time frame. This class idea came about because of a question from Lola Martinet. She asked how to submit a class where you build something and where you put in those details. So we revamped the application to include more questions and Burley Lab specific questions. So we're hoping that this year we see a few Burley Lab classes and that people walk out of those classes proudly with things in their hands, like I made these pasties, I put LED lights inside of shoes that are see-through. Those types of things would be great. And now let's talk about the selection committee. People always ask, how do these classes get selected? Well, let's talk about the selection committee first. First up is Lola Pistola. She's a producer, performer, MC, an all-around awesome human out of Anchorage, Alaska. She is part of the Viva Boom Burlesque troupe, and she's one of the producers of the Freezing Tassel Burlesque Festival. Second, we have Gigi Holiday, a performer and producer out of Washington, D.C. She's the producer of La Boom Brunch, head mistress at Studio Holiday, and performer with the Gilded Lily Burlesque troupe. Kiki Mustang, a performer here in Seattle, and a valuable member to the BurlyCon steering committee. She's on multiple committees, and she is killing it and adminning it all over for all of us, and we appreciate it. Fourth, we have Fossey Jack. He is also a Seattle-based performer and producer, and he has been part of the BurlyCon steering committee for a long time, and he is the director of volunteers. Last, we have Loa de Boom Boom. Lives in Olympia, Seattle-based performer as well, and producer, and she's the director of community this year at BurlyCon. And then there's me. Now what I do is kind of sit back, let the selection committee make their decisions based on a few things that I'm going to discuss next, and I oversee and provide guidance basically whenever the committee needs me. How does the selection committee choose which classes are going to be part of programming each year? I'm going to go ahead and read a few of these. We look at the mix of classes. Our goal is to have a certain number of classes per track. Those tracks are on stage, glamour, community, production, and mind and body. The number of classes chosen on degree of difficulty. In the class application, you'll see all, so for all students, beginning, intermediate, and advanced. And we need a mix, so if 10 people submit a costuming class, we're going to look at the mix of difficulty, or student level really, that each instructor put in their application and find a balance between those. Is your class unique and or integral to the art form of burlesque? Is the instructor qualified to teach this topic? Has the instructor taught at BurlyCon before? If yes, how were they regarded? Have they taught for 2 years consecutively? If so, are they submitting the same classes, or are these classes different? I'll talk a little bit more about the 2 years on, 1 year off policy a little further. Does the class and instructor fall in line with BurlyCon's mission and values? Our values for the selection committee are excellence, ethics, heart, diversity, legacy, and community. Now let's talk about a hard topic. What happens if you aren't chosen to teach? Why weren't you chosen to teach? There's a few answers to this, and they should cover pretty much any question someone has. An invited presenter is teaching something similar to the class that you submitted. The invited presenter will have the favor to teach that class over someone who submitted the class. Each year, there are a few class topics that many instructors submit class proposals to. We look at many factors when deciding which of those we'll choose. And as I mentioned previously, there's a mix of different things that we look at and a holistic approach to programming. For example, I was on the selection committee in 2018, and there were quite a few ass-related classes submitted, like tasseling, assling, booty bounce, booty this, ass-tastic, all the things. So there's many ass classes submitted. We compared and contrasted them, reviewed the presenters. Had they taught this class at BurlyCon before? What was the feedback? Is the presenter ready to teach this class? Are they knowledgeable on the topic? Is an invited presenter teaching a similar class? Do we need a different skill level? Now, back to that 2 years on, 1 year off rule. That's the other reason. Has this instructor taught at BurlyCon before? And have they been teaching for 2 years in a row? If so, are there other instructors submitting a similar class? If yes, we will likely choose the other instructor, but that's not always the case. Now let's go deeper into that 2 years on, 1 year off policy. Even if your classes basically sell out the room year after year, oh my gosh, you had so many people that they were standing along the walls for 2 years straight. It's important to give other instructors who also teach topics similar to yours a chance to teach at BurlyCon. So that's the 2 years on, 1 year off. It's not that we don't love you, we do love you, but we also want to make space for other people. Caucuses and panels. Why aren't they on the application? Well, we moved them over to a survey because we didn't want to make you go through the entire application just to submit a caucus or panel idea. So we moved those over, you answer a few questions on the survey, and your idea is submitted to the community team, which is headed by Loa de Boom Boom, as I mentioned before. You can look at BurlyCon's website or check out our social media to find the survey link to that and submit those. Those are also due on March 31st or March 30th. One last surprise for the BurlyCon programming committee. We are adding a masterclass track. This is where advanced, expert, veteran, seasoned burlesque pros are offered challenging learning opportunities during the weekend. The masterclass track participants will learn from each other and other top-notch burlesque professionals and further their professional skills and development via critique, act scene studies, and challenging high-level classwork in a small group environment. That's it. That's all I have for you. Thank you for listening to me. I appreciate your time. And please get those class proposals in. I love seeing the mix of classes we receive. Even though this is only my second year, I had a blast the first year, really diving in and trying to find what classes would work for the overall BurlyCon attendees. So please get those classes in. Thanks. Ooh, as I fall. All right, before we go back to that.